This is Matthew McConaughey.
Natalie Portman.
James Patterson.
Michael Ian Black.
And you are listening to
Five Questions
with Dan Schawbel.
Tim, welcome to Five Questions.
Thank you for having me. It's a real privilege to be here.
What was your aha moment during the time when you played football that inspired you to create Allbirds, and what role did your business background play in developing the brand?
Well, none in the sense that I didn't have a business background. In a previous life, I was playing professional sport, and I was sponsored by one of the big sportswear brands that shall not be named. And I got lots of free gear. And that free gear was almost entirely made from synthetic materials derived from barrels of oil, essentially plastic. And it had logos prominently displayed all over it. And there was an element of both of those things that I felt could be done better, more thoughtfully. And it was the beginning of imagining a brand with super natural materials at the core, and a design philosophy that was about the details and about quality and less about big logo marks. That really was the inspiration and the starting point. And then I like to say it was a bad idea for a long time before we took it further. And it was the start of a multi-year journey to take the strands of those initial insights and turn it into what would become Allbirds. But that was the beginning.
Yeah. A lot of people have ideas, but it's really the execution that you need that separates one entrepreneur from just a dreamer, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it's in some ways easy to have an idea. It's much harder to put it into the world, and even harder still to get it to a stage where someone other than your mum will take money out of their wallet and actually purchase the product or service that you're imagining. That's when the learning starts, but also the potential for embarrassment, and so it's tricky, and it was no different for us in the early days. It was full of trial and error and lots of mistakes.
And what were the parallels between your athletic career and your business career?
As my co-founder likes to point out to me, I didn't have any business experience, so I had to lean on my experience from sport. And look, there's so many lessons. I think the ones that spring to mind or are top of mind for me starts first and foremost with the concept of team. To truly understand what a team is to understand that you need to be incredibly honest about the one or two things that you do really well, and do a lot of them, and then make sure that the rest of the team has complementary skills. And now that's easy to say and harder to do, and takes a large amount of sort of self-awareness. And I think sport teaches you that. I also think there's an underestimated quality around performance, and that is being a great team member. That's something you can work at and you can think about, and makes a huge contribution to the overall direction of the organization, of the team that you're a part of. And sport teaches you that in the most visceral of ways. And so that absolutely, I think sport also teaches you to trust the process and to think long term. I think we have a tendency to massively overestimate what we can get done in the short run, and underestimate what can be achieved in the long run if we stick with something. Effectively, the compounding impact of getting a little bit better every day. And I think as an athlete, you're taught to trust the process, that you're going to go into practice and you're going to repeat and repeat and repeat one or two little things without really tangibly being able to see the progress, but trust that over time you're going to get better at it. And I think sport teaches you that. And then along the way, you're going to understand that you're going to lose the odd game, even when things are going well, even when you're improving, even when the team is doing everything right. You can still lose, and equally when you're not, you can be winning. And but in the fullness of time, over the course of the season, if you trust the process, the best teams win the season, they win the league, and I think sport teaches you that. And then I think the last thing is maybe just in the management or leadership of people. I think the best coaches I had, first and foremost, they cared, and they cared enough to be very direct and clear with what their expectations were, and where I was falling short at any given moment, and yet they gave me room to be me and to express myself, knowing that you can't have high performance without confidence. and that the confidence can be cultivated and can be coached and can be built on the back of hard work, but also belief in someone. And so I think I've tried to take some of those principles from the great coaches that I had and apply that to the management of people in the context of business.
Those are a lot of parallels. I mean, I would say competition, yeah, and you're not going to win every game, but it's all about the long-term kind of vision. And as long as you win enough, that's all you need. It's like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs say you just have to be right once, right?
Yeah, or right once over a long period of time. The best ideas come, and the people that work hard, will win if you just trust that process and you commit to that belief in the power of getting a little bit better. And it can compound, and it can really help in the long.
And training. I think training is a good parallel too, right? You got to train every day to get better and be sharper, and get into good shape and stay in good shape.
Yeah, good habits. And look, we could even extend it all the way to the idea of understanding when you're performing, but also when you're resting. I think the business world, as a general rule, does a poor job of thinking about the rest piece of it, and everything tends to be all go all the time. And the ebbs and flows of understanding when you build up to a performance and how important it is on the back end or before it to slow down, to reflect, but also to rest. I continue to think of the importance of a really good night's sleep, even very literally in the context of performing a business, and how few people don't give that enough credit in its role in being able to both perform and then sustain performance. So yeah, I could go on about this one for a while.
Yeah, a lack of sleep means you're less social too. There was a study that came out a few years ago on that. And if you're burned out, it's very counterproductive. So you see in corporate America, especially over the past 3 years, with people working remote and working more hours and all that, like people were just constantly working. And so even though it appeared like everyone was just ultra productive, productivity kind of went down because people were burned out from excess productivity, excess hours.
Yeah, I think that's right. And again, sport teaches you that it's, end of the day, you need to work hard, you need to prepare, but performance and the results that come from that performance isn't just about working hard. It's about considering all the aspects to what allows you to perform at your best in a particular moment. And so just doing the work, just taking more meetings, taking more Zoom calls doesn't necessarily mean that you're being more productive or that you're performing better. And the disconnect or the potential connection between those two, I think, is something we could all think about a lot more and understand a lot more from the world of sport.
What have been the benefits and challenges from taking Allbirds public, and how have you dealt with them?
Well, again, a good segue to the pressures of sport. I think all of a sudden, as a public company, you have this share price that is hovering above the business at any given time. That is the near-term results that are inarguable and a matter of public record. And on the one hand, they're very important, and on the other hand, they're often disconnected to the things that you're working on in any given moment or in any given day. And so I think it's it's continuing to take small steps and to be incredibly focused, but to walk with your head up and to maintain that long-term vision for who you are, where you're going, and what you can be, and not get too caught up in the ebbs and flows of the odd win or loss or fluctuation in a share price that to a certain extent you can control and oftentimes you can't. And so I think that's about the psychology of an organization. It's about the confidence of an organization. It's about an organization understanding what really matters and what's important. And we're a year into it, and there's been some challenges and some incredible things that have come out of the rigor and the discipline of being a public company. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here and to prove that purpose and profit and our North Star around sustainability can create an incredible business. And we need to prove that on the biggest stage, and I believe we will over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no question that, sustainability has been, part of the conversation for several years. but you're only seeing more and more of it. And I can just imagine being the CEO of a publicly traded company, and you're like, you probably don't even want to watch TV, right? Because you turn on CNBC and there's your stock price, right? So, and not only do you see the stock price, but you have people commentating on it, and they probably have no idea what you're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think the psychology of performance, again, going back to sport, has so many overlaps. And there's certain things that you can control and certain things you can't. And you need to make sure that you control the inputs into your own psychology as a leader, but also the psychology of an organization. Like I sort of said, you can't have high performance without confidence. And so I think, we thought a lot about that in the context of Allbirds. And, like I sort of said, it's a funny thing about achievement and progress. You have some success and then things get harder. We're playing on the highest stage of business and we need to be great. And that's, again, going to take some time, and we need to trust the process. And I've never believed more that we continue to do the things that make us great, that we'll be very successful in the long run.
Can you explain your new role of leading Allbirds Futures team and your vision for making the footwear industry more sustainable long term?
Yeah, I've recently shifted my focus to a few things within the context of leading the business, and one of them is innovation, or what we call our futures program. Much like I talked about in the early stages, it's about a large part about understanding the one or two things that I can do well and how I can best contribute to the team being successful. And it's also a place of incredible energy to me as we help to define the future. And the future is about incredible, products in the lifestyle and performance space, leveraging our natural material engine that we think is special, and is creating and bringing to market a whole bunch of materials that are new to the world and important to the world. And most importantly, ladder up to make great product experiences. Sustainability is a very important topic at the moment in the most wonderful ways. People are increasingly aware that climate change is the problem of our generation, and yet a word like sustainability can mean 100 different things to 100 different people. It can be about land quality and air quality and fair trade labor and animal welfare and so many things that sometimes it can get so complicated you want to stay in bed. And Allbirds has really latched on to the idea of carbon, and one of the big focuses of our futures team is around innovating with low carbon or zero carbon products. And we have some big announcements coming in the future on that, and I'm really excited to be close to that work.
Yeah, customers definitely factor in, brands and sustainability and leadership when they make purchases now, and who they work for. So I think that is only going to become more important. And I think what Allbirds has succeeded on, just, as a customer, is the brand experience, like going into the store. I remember, oh, this is fun. And you pick out, extra shoelaces, right? And then I do think you've taken advantage of not just sustainability, but I remember when I first bought my first pair years ago, it was more of, oh, wow, this is part of the transformation of work and life culture. Whereas people might not be wearing socks as much anymore because they're wearing these type of casual shoes that are comfortable. So I do think that there's multiple trends that you hit at once, and then creating that customer experience that you've talked about a lot. I've listened to other interviews you've done, which is so essential. And I feel like customer and employee experience are two of the most important things right now for running a business, based on all the entrepreneurs I talk to.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the kind words. I think it's really important, and I remind our team all the time, you don't set out to make a sustainable product, you set out to make a great product. But you've come to understand that in this moment, and certainly moving forward, a product can't be considered great unless it's considering sustainability and the impact on the world, and in truly the most holistic way. And at Allbirds, that's been in the heart of everything that we've done from the beginning, and we continue to believe that's where the world is going in an accelerated way, and that there's a huge opportunity to continue to innovate and shine a light forward in the footwear space, and that's what we'll keep doing.
And what's your best piece of career advice?
So much advice from so many people, and this one might be a little bit counterintuitive, but I think my best advice would be to remember that you can always quit, and by association, to remember that you hold the pen, and you hold the pen a lot more than you think, oftentimes in the design of a business, but also in the design of your own life. and that oftentimes we don't see that as clearly or deploy that as often. I was really struggling with my sporting career, my football career, or my soccer career, depending on where you come from. And I called my dad from a phone box in Swansea in January. For anyone who's been in Wales or the UK at that time of year, it's grey and dark and horrible. I was running out of money. I was unable to find a professional club. And on the other side of the world in New Zealand, lo and behold, it was the middle of summer and the family was gathering for a barbecue. And my dad picked up the phone and I said, Dad, look, I'm struggling. I can't make this professional sporting thing work. And he said, look, we're proud of you. Never thought you would get this far. If you want to stop, you totally should. And if you want to keep going, we're right behind you. But hey, I've got to get back to the barbecue. We miss you. But don't call me for permission to quit. That's on you. And you find the reasons why it makes sense to keep going. And if they're not there, then do something else. And, it was an incredibly tough piece of advice coming from a place of deep love. But it's something that it's really reminded me that, you choose. And when you choose, do it for reasons that matter, and understand along the way that, if those reasons change, you should change with them. And if they don't, you should never give up and you should keep going. But understanding that deep sense of yourself and what you want to do and your autonomy and ownership of that is probably, I think, a really important thing to keep in mind. And oftentimes we lose sight of that in the midst of all the challenges of all the things that we're doing.
Accountability is really important. I mean, your parents, if they said you should absolutely quit and then you quit and then you wish like a few years later you didn't quit, like they don't want to also be blamed for that too.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So maybe it's strategically smart parenting, but more than anything else, you hold the pen. And one of the incredible things about starting an idea in the midst of all the challenges of doing so is that you get to choose the people that you work with, and you get to choose the team. And oftentimes, as things get busy and challenging, and every number of challenges come at you, you lose sight of the fact that there's certain things that you can't control, and there's a lot that you can, and the ones that you can, you should remember that you're holding the pen on a lot of those decisions, and you should make sure they're the right ones for you.
Well, that's great advice, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Dan.